I'm pumped to do this track today. This is a band called High Step 5. It was recorded, mixed, produced by my buddy Sean Frost at Frost Sounds Audio. I'm pretty sure it's his studio name. It sounds awesome. I'm so excited to work on this. Tonight is going to be a little different. We're going to be focusing on vocals this time. So we just have basically an instrumental track that has already been mixed, and we have however many tracks this is with vocals. So we're going to try to dial in a cool sound. This has a lot of space and a lot of vibe and groove to this song, so we want to make sure that we really enhance that. And so I think a trick that we're going to end up using is a lot of delays, a lot of lush reverbs, and it's going to be managing those to make sure we're not clouding up the mix. That's going to be really important. And so we'll go through my different strategies for doing that, and then we'll also probably do, I'll probably show some EQing of reverbs and things like that to make things sit in the mix better. Let's get started. First things first, we always have to make sure that the lead vocal has its own space within this mix, okay? So this is, so if I can't get it to fit in the mix, I'm going to try to make it. And I'll show you some strategies for doing that. All right, so let's listen. So probably the first thing we're going to do is get some compression on these vocals to kind of level out the performance so that it's more, you can hear all the nuances of the vocals on top of the instrumental tracks. Okay. And honestly, the vocals are like, these vocals are like perfectly recorded. I don't even know if I'm gonna need to do much to them. So my weapon of choice for this style of music, where it's a little bit more aggressive, is an 1176 style compressor. This is FET style compressor. This is more in your face. The attack times are a lot faster. The release is a lot faster than something like an optical compressor, like an LA2A. LA2A kind of has this like spongy softness to it, whereas the 1176 is awesome for like in-your-face aggression type stuff. So I think we're probably gonna end up using this. So let's get these vocals up and in your face.
Once you learn to stand straight,
Cool. What I find is that if you make your release timing really, really, really fast. So in this case, 7 is fast. Most compressors, like the smaller the number, the faster it is, but for whatever reason, they decided to do it this way. So this is the fastest that I can release this. To my ears, that brings the vocalist forward. And what this release knob essentially is doing is just letting the volume return back to where it was before it was compressed. So if we have it really fast, the volume gets back faster, and that effect alone, like psychoacoustically in our brain, makes it feel like we're pulling the vocalist forward. If the vocals are like kind of disjointed and too close, you can slow your release down, and if you listen, it feels like the vocalist is getting pushed back. Kind of a cool trick. So you can think of release as like the distance the vocalist is. The next thing, if we want to make it more aggressive sounding, we can back off on this attack a little bit, and that'll let like the sharp, it'll let the plosives through a little bit more. So it'll feel like it's being spoken more aggressively. So we'll start with it really fast, and I'll just dial it back, and you'll hear it kind of opens up the vocals and makes it sound a little bit more intimate and like aggressive.
Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm
right here. So with it set way back here, the vocals sound a lot more bright. They sound more aggressive, more intimate, and then they just come up. And they have their own space now a little bit more.
Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back. How I see the world.
I don't think we necessarily need to use a de-esser yet. I mean, the vocals have a little bit of sibilance, but like I think it works for the style of music. I wouldn't, if we start hitting it with a de-esser, I feel like what's going to happen is we're going to tame it and we're going to start making it feel less modern.
Weighing down the skinny legs and I'm slowly getting close to.
So something else I like to do just to ensure that we have a nice solid level performance is I always put a limiter on my main vocal bus.
You is never the same.
So this is just to kind of catch anything that's going to jump out a little bit.
Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm fighting for my life.
Cool. This is like a great spot.
Balance back, how I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing.
Awesome, man. This is already sounding pretty awesome. Hey, Sean, I see you're in here. What did you use? Is this Slate VMS to record these vocals? Because man, it sounds awesome. Man, with the way this mixes, the mix is a little bit darker, I think. And so if we make a really modern, hyped, bright vocal sound, it might sound disjointed, but let's try it a little bit. So my go-to strategy for getting the vocals to sound nice and bright is the C6. And so this is just a multi-band compressor. If you've popped in any other live streams, you've seen me use this 100 times. Basically, what I have it set up to do is we're boosting the top end a lot, and then we're making the low mids a little bit more consistent by digging in and removing if it ever builds up too much, like if there's like, so we have this really quiet part, right? So the low mids are going to be really hyped. And then when he's belting louder, then it kind of shifts the tonality range. So it'll give those vocals a little bit more bass response and then reduce the bass for the quiet part. So that's why I like to use a multiband compressor instead of using like an EQ, because this is adaptive. It's gonna move and live and breathe with the song. Okay, so basically we're hyping the top end, but then we're also going to clamp down on it so that if it gets a little too bit bright, it'll automatically lower it down for us. So check out what this sounds like with this song. So this is off.
Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now
so it's like very poppy right now. That's it. There's so much like brightness and air to it. I think it makes it too disjointed. So I'm gonna actually lower this a little bit.
Just to get my balance back, how I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing down the skinny legs, and I'm slowly getting.
Now it has this nice like bright, shiny, shimmery thing going on. And when we start layering in delays and reverbs and things like that, it's going to really tone that down, I think. But we might have to come back and revisit it. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, this is pretty solid.
It all falls down.
Now okay, so let's start making this sound dreamy and huge and lush. These vocals right here, I'm noticing there's build up like 300 or 400 hertz. I'm just gonna use an EQ and dig some of this out.
And I feel it again and again.
Yeah, right here.
That sweet, sweet taste of pain. But this time it's closing in fast. So this may be my last. Now we're fighting for our lives just to get our balance back. The sky is caving, weighing down the skinny legs, and I'm slowly getting.
Okay, cool. No, that's sounding good, man. All right. So let's talk about like the processing, the delays, the reverbs, and all this, because this is where the vocals are going to start sounding magical. Depending on the type of style of vocal, sometimes I like to do, I'll send to this plugin by SoundToys called Devil Lock. It's a distortion plugin, and I'll show you what it sounds. It sounds terrible.
Getting close to the edge.
So here,
it's all be shattered.
Okay, so this is what the vocals sound like when they're processed.
It's all apart.
It has a very distinct mid-range to it. So if the vocals ever sound thin or weak, the first thing I do is send to that distortion. And then I turn the fader all the way down and I just fade it up until the vocals feel thicker, have more weight. And at that point, I back it off a tiny bit and leave it. So sometimes it's at like negative 30 dB, sometimes it's not. It just depends on the vocal. So let's try adding a little of that on the main vocal and just to see if it gives it a little bit more like weight to it. Okay, so let me just go down here and make sure it's turned all the way down. Okay. So now we're just gonna fade this up and listen to the vocal.
It's never the same once you learn to stand straight.
So right here we're hearing mostly distorted vocal.
Nothing prepares for the fall once you take your first steps. Now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back.
So we have to be careful because very quickly the vocals are gonna start sounding distorted. So I'm actually gonna turn this crunch down. And I'll turn so this is basically compression, this is distortion or saturation. So the cool thing about doing this in parallel is we can get a very intimate, breathy sound because we can bring up all the really small nuance like mouth noises using really aggressive compression from this plugin. And then we can go easier on the compression on the main track, so then you have more dynamics. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm backing this down a little bit.
How I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing down the skinny legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge.
So now you can hear the vocals are a lot more dynamic, but now we hear all the breath and the little nuances. It's awesome. All right, so we have the parallel distortion running. So this brings out like the breathiness while keeping the dynamics, and it gives it a little bit more weight. Okay, so the next, one of my favorite things to do is use again, this is another SoundToys thing. This is Microshift. But what this does, it's basically like a chorus effect. But on vocals, if you dial it in just right, to the point where you can't really tell it's there, if you take it away, it sounds like the vocals get really small. So this is a way to like make vocals sound huge without making it like having a noticeable effect, right? It's not like it has reverb. It's not like it has delay. It just sounds big. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, I'm gonna push this way too much and you'll hear it.
Straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back.
So now let's just dial this back to the point where we just can't hear it, and then we'll go a little bit more, and you'll see the vocals just sound more 3D and so much bigger.
How I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing down the skinny legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge. It's overshadowed.
Cool. All right, let's add some crazy delays. If we're talking delays, I typically do like 3 delays. For something like this, where the phrasing is kind of fast, we might, at least in the chorus, we'll definitely use a quarter note delay, but for the verse, we might not want a quarter note because it might be too slow. I usually use a quarter note. I usually use an 1/8 note ping pong, so it bounces around. And then I use a ping pong delay that's all messed up. What do I mean by that? Let me show you what I mean. I have a quarter note on one side and a 16th note on the other. And then also it's heavily filtered, right? We have like almost no high end in it. We have like up to 2800 hertz. This one only has 1500 hertz. And then we're getting rid of a lot of those low mids and bass. So we're starting at like 300. So it's like almost like a telephone-y kind of thing. But the way that it throws the delays around is in an asymmetrical way, and what ends up happening is that it makes the vocals start sounding really, really big. And I love to use this delay on like harmonies or anything that maybe isn't the main focus, but you want it to sound big or larger than life. Like that style of a delay on these harmonies is going to be amazing, and I can't wait to show you guys that. All right, so let's push some delays on here.
It's never the same once you learn.
So for this style, let's try like a triplet.
Learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm fighting for my...
Maybe a dotted, I don't know. This is gonna be a little tricky. So first things I will say, anytime we're working with a delay, filter the delay. Do not, it's never a good idea to have a lot of bass in your delay. Anytime with rock music, especially, you're always fighting for those mid-range frequencies. Everything has that mid-range. And then if you go and throw 3 delays on top of your song and it all has those low frequencies, I mean, there's no hope for the instruments to have their own space. So right away, I'll just cut off, you know, we're at almost 400 hertz, where it bypasses everything below that. And then same with the high frequencies. I don't go much higher than 2K, because when you start getting higher than that, you're just kind of adding a lot of sizzle, and it makes the delays very noticeable. So we don't want to hear the echo all the time. We just want the vocals to kind of flow. And if you have a lot of top end, your ears are going to hear it, especially if there's any sibilant parts. That's going to jump out of the speakers every time. So I tend to just roll off that to like about 2K.
Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall.
So maybe we need eighth
Once
note
you
here,
take
actually.
your first steps, now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back. How I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing.
I might do some other things with this, okay? Because it's still a little bit noticeable to me. So some cool things that we can do would be, we can put like a reverb on the effects bus, on this auxiliary bus. And what that does is it helps just to smooth out those the repetitions of it. So if we put something like, I have a Lexicon reverb bundle, which I really like. So if we put a plate reverb, or we could stick with, we could try Little Plate by SoundToys. They also make a really cool, I think this is actually free at one point. But this thing sounds awesome. So first thing, let's get rid of some of that low end. And then listen what happens to those delays when I push this, when I feed those echoes into the reverb.
Prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back. How I see the world shakes under attack.
But do you hear how it smooths out those delay repeats, so you can't like hear them anymore?
Attack, the sky is caving, weighing down the skin and leg.
Like it's, I mean, you can hear them, right? But you don't hear the individual taps anymore.
Skin and legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge.
And it just gives it this huge sound. And I mean, this is very loud just for the example, but listen to it when I dial it back. It just makes the vocal sound so much more lush.
The view is never the same. Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall.
Like, that's beautiful. And it works because this has like a dreamy vibe to it, right? So that's one strategy. Let's bring this back in. I think this is at like minus 14. I'm going to save my session so that we can come right back now.
Once you take your first steps now.
Cool. I always like to put a big hall reverb on. So again, I'm just going to add this giant hall reverb on here. And again, we might want to lower the bass.
Get my balance back. How I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving.
And then because it's a send, we always want to have the mix, or for the most part, we want to have the mix at 100%. And that, again, is just so that we're only getting wet signal. We don't want to add volume. We want to add the effect. So if you have the mix at 100% when you have it on a send, you'll ensure that you're only going to be adding an effect and not volume to the sound.
Caving, weighing down the skin and legs.
Okay, so I'm just going to disable that delayed reverb that we made. And let's listen to just this hall.
Now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back.
So reverb is really tricky because if you add a lot of reverb, it takes the vocalists and pushes them back. And there's a few ways like you can trick your brain into perceiving the reverb not pushing them back, and that's by adding a pre-delay. So that's right here. So we can add some pre-delay. That gives it the effect that the vocalist is talking to us, and then, you know, they're close enough so we hear direct sound, and then we get the reverb from the room. So if you want a really lush vocal sound, but you still want it to feel like it's a little bit close to the listener, that's a good strategy is right there. Cool. Let's bring that reverb delay back in.
My balance back, how I see the world shakes under attack. The sky.
Okay, it's starting to sound pretty cool. Let's add in. Actually, I don't want to get it too crazy because if we start adding too much delays and reverbs and stuff, what's going to end up happening is it's going to start sounding muddy. So let's listen to the vocal within the context of the song now.
Love you is never the same. Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for
So it's a little bit too much right now. So let's dial this
take
back.
Your first steps. Now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back. How I see the world shakes.
Cool. Let's put in that. I mentioned that I had this crazy delay where everything is like screwed up in terms of timing, where it's a quarter note on one and a 16th on another. I'm just gonna put this on the main vocal to show you.
Attack. The sky is caving, weighing down the skin and legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge. It's all be shattered.
Sounds wild in solo, but if you dial this back enough and then you bring it in, it just makes it sound huge.
Now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back. How I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing down the skin and legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge.
Cool. I'm hearing a little bit of buildup in the frequencies of that the reverb, and this is something that I don't see a lot of people doing ever. And so people are like, oh yeah, this is awesome. I'm gonna add all this reverb, and then the vocals get muddy. They're too scared to come in here and just start, EQing the different reverbs. Just don't be afraid of that stuff. So we have all this crazy noise. This is building up. Just get rid of this. We don't need that.
Right from the start, it all falls down.
Cool. When we have things like this where vocals are on top and then this guitar comes in and we can't really hear them. So let's just automate. Don't ever be afraid to automate stuff.
How we see the world shake. Now we're fighting for our lives just to get our balance back. How we see the world shakes under attack. The sky is giving and it's
cool. See, I mean, this is
slowly getting close to the edge. It's all been shattered. It's all apart.
And then this is the big chorus, right? So why not bump up the vocals again? People want to hear the vocals. You want people singing with you. You don't want people playing air guitar. Maybe you do, but I feel like the vocals are what people really listen to. You know what I mean?
It's all been shattered.
And let's bring these harmonies in. So first thing with harmonies is add this microshift thing. It'll make them sound so big. Let me see. Here's an example. Cool. And then do this wacky reverb, or this delay, this screwed up delay with the, again, quarter note and 16th that just throws the vocals around all over the place. Makes these harmonies sound huge. And then, then you have to just kind of find your style. So sometimes people like a really wet lead vocal and then dry harmonies to keep everything tight, or you could have really spacey, dreamy harmonies and then a really dry lead vocal. So I guess my approach is to have a kind of a dreamy lead vocal, and then we're going to go with a more dry harmony. And so that's just going to help tighten everything up.
Right from the start.
Cool. So we just put... All right, let's bring everything in. So with something like this, when we have these long pauses, it might be a good idea to make like a delay throw. What do I mean by that is you can take like so this is the track that's doing like the main vocals, right? So we can duplicate this track and then just put a delay on this track. And we'll make this, so we set it up so that it's 100% wet, so all we're hearing is the echo. Okay, and then we can just delete all the parts that we don't want to hear, and we just want to hear echo, and then it'll carry the vocal through those gaps for us. So let's see if it will play anything. Yeah, there we go. So then we'll just use like the last syllable here, and then we'll turn this track down, and then that way you don't have to do all this automation. You can just take pieces, and then whatever one you want to echo longer, you just copy the audio and just bring it down onto this track, and you got it. So check it out. So then you just go in and say, okay, we want just that word. We just want this word. Just want this word. And then you have like these cool delay tails that you now have in your song. So, I mean, you know, it's just a really simple trick for like from a vocal production standpoint that lets you do things really quickly so you don't lose your vision of the song. So because this audio drops out here, we want the vocals to be dry here, otherwise it'll sound really weird. So what I might even suggest doing is going down to our like effects bus and literally just like almost muting it for that one part, or just turn it way down, and then it'll get super dry, and it just kind of gives it a cool effect. So I know this part of the song is supposed to have like a cool effect on it, so I'm just gonna arbitrarily throw like, I don't know, some sort of like, what if I'm feeling crazy tonight. What if we do like a Bitcrusher? But before I'm gonna save, because knowing my luck, it's gonna crash or something. So, all right, let's see what this sounds like. I never use this. Let's just see how it sounds. It might sound cool here. Let's see what it sounds like. So we don't really hear the effect much, and I think it's because we have this the main vocals going through this this distortion here. So let's kill that. Yeah. All right, let's go back to the beginning and just listen to see how the vocals are starting to fit in. Because I think at this point, what we need to do is figure out a strategy to incorporate the vocals into the instrumental.
Straight, nothing prepares for the fall. Once you take your first steps, now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back.
So right now, the vocals are starting to get hard to hear, in my opinion. So we have two choices. We can either turn the volume up, which I think I'm going to do a little bit, but not much, a tiny bit. The other thing is, I think we're starting to like the frequencies of the vocals are starting to fight all the instruments, especially that guitar. So how do we get these vocals to sound more clear in this mix? You can do it a few ways. So one way would be, this is one of the easiest ways to do it. So if you don't have a lot of plugins or you're new to this might be the simplest way to do it. So go to whatever instrument or track you think is causing the conflict between like the vocals. And so basically what I'm listening for is what instrument comes in that makes it hard for me to hear the vocal. Go to that track, pull up an EQ, and I'm going to show you. This is kind of counterintuitive because what we're going to be doing is using the EQ to find a spot where we're trying to enhance the frequency on the track, like the guitar or whatever's interfering with the vocal, trying to find a spot where the vocals are really hard to hear. Okay, so we're going to want to cut all this out of the instruments, and then that'll punch a hole there for the vocals to fill down. This is like my secret. Okay, so I'm EQing the instruments, but I'm not listening to the instruments at all. I'm listening to the vocal. Like right here, the vocals are like impossible to understand. Right? That is where you have to cut. That's it. Now watch what happens. The vocals are gonna be crystal clear now. That one thing is what like 90% of people do wrong. Is they'll listen to it and like, oh, I need to make the vocals brighter because I can't hear it. Or I need to turn the volume up because I can't hear it. That's not the problem. The problem is the arrangement. And the problem is the frequencies that the instruments occupy. So put an EQ on the instruments, move it around to the point where you can't hear the vocals anymore. That's the problem frequency. Cut that, and then the vocals have their space. Because to be honest, like I would never once in my life load up these instruments and say, oh, it needs an 8 dB cut at 423 hertz. Like, because it's just so random. And if you're just listening to the instruments, like what ends up happening is you hear, like you make this cut and you're like, it sounds different. And I don't like it as much because I like those frequencies in an instrument. But because we don't have the vocals to fill that spot, you know, we're just stabbing around in the dark, cutting stuff. So always reference it against something so that you have an idea if you're going in the right direction or not. But like that one move, like just completely changed everything. And I will say there's something else that I'm noticing in this vocal, or in this track, the instruments. It's a little bit honky. So I think around 2K, we're gonna make another cut. It sounds kind of nasally to me, like that. Right here. Oh, yeah. Let's go to a loud part so I can hear it easier. Go here. There we go. That. Get rid of that. This is also going to help the vocals sound brighter too. So it's a little bit annoying, like this frequency range, but that's where the clarity of the vocal lives. So like the intelligibility of the vocal. Okay, so like that is so important. Now listen, I just did 2 EQ moves, right? Listen to how much the vocals will sound better now. All right, so we'll get to this. I haven't even started mixing the harmonies yet. We just kind of added some cool effects, but they're a little bit dark. We need to clean up the low mids on them. But listen to the main vocal now. I mean, it just fits so much better now.
feel it again and again.
It's a little bit of there's a buildup again I'm hearing in these low mids, and I think it's in that track, this one, where we have the delay feeding the reverb. Let me just pull this up. Let's solo this and listen. Yeah. It's this stuff. 300 to 400 hertz, like in these things, just makes everything so muddy.
Just to get our balance back, how we see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving and it's weighing down the skin and legs, we're slowly getting close to the edge. It's all been shattered, it's all apart, about to pieces.
Then we have that cool delay throw. All right, let's bring these harmonies in and make this chorus like hit.
Close to the edge.
All right, I want some sparkle in there. There we go. And I find that if you do your harmonies and you get rid of a lot of low end, it makes the harmonies feel like a little bit bigger, wider, and then also like higher in the mix to kind of float around above the vocalist. So if it gets kind of disjointed, lower the high frequencies a little bit, and it kind of helps to bring the vocals and gel them a little bit. All right, let's crush these with this compressor. So their performances are the same, so nothing's really jumping out. Cool. Let's give this a big old reverb. I was against it at first, but I kind of want it. I want more space. I think it's sounding like it's big hall. Yeah. You see how making it dry there added so much impact? It's a cool little trick, like just to do that occasionally. Because what ends up happening is when everything cuts out for those instruments and you get rid of those effects, you make it really small. And then when the instruments come back in, it just feels so much bigger. Oh, see, that's awesome. Here's my bogus Bitcrusher. Cool. It started to sound pretty good. Man, we don't need to do a whole lot more. This is sounding killer. Let's do like a quick bogus mastering of this, because I want to see what's going to happen when we start gluing everything together. So I'm just going to try to increase the loudness of this track quickly. So I'm just going to do this really fast. I'm not really going to get into it too much. Just because I'm just curious how it's gonna sound. Yeah. Starting to sound silky, baby. I'm doing this super fast. Just ignore me. So this is just getting rid of any like the really harsh things in the mix. Alright, we're getting close. Alright, let's push this up and just see how, because the goal here would be, I want the reverbs to marry into the song and breathe with the instruments. And sometimes when you have a lot of reverb, once you get in the mastering stage where you make everything loud and ready to be released on radio or Spotify or whatever, it'll bring out those nuances too much. And so you start getting like the song starts sounding like it's swallowed by the reverb. But yeah, I think it's sitting okay. I mean, we might want to like, we might want to dial it back a little bit. It's a little bit aggressive, I would say, in terms of like the reverb. So I'm just gonna dial all the effects back a little bit. Let's just listen to it again.
The view is never the same. Once you learn to stand straight, nothing prepares for the fall.
Sounded pretty good.
Take your first steps. Now I'm fighting for my life just to get my balance back. How I see the world shakes under attack. The sky is caving, weighing down the skinny legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge. It's all shattered.
All right, so that's like the most underwhelming like pre-chorus because I had the volume too loud. So this is we got to be careful when we play with automation. Let me dial this back. We want this part. This part is building to like this big epic chorus, and it just like got quiet, and that can't happen.
Under attack, the sky is caving, weighing down the skinny legs, and I'm slowly getting close to the edge. It's all shattered, torn apart, burnt to pieces.
So I think we probably want to bring these harmonies down a little bit because we don't want to make it too big, but we want it to build each time. So these harmonies might be a little bit quieter on the first pre-chorus. These ones can be louder, and we can keep making them louder or add more harmonies later on.
From the start, it all falls down.
I think it'd be cool if we brought this guy up a tiny bit. Cool.
And I feel it again and again.
This too loud. We gotta bring this down. Because we want it to keep building. So you see it like the general progression of the automation is like getting louder and louder and louder, right? So let's bring this stuff down a little bit and help it build a little bit more.
That sweet, sweet taste, and I feel it again and again. That sweet, sweet taste of pain, but this time it's closing in fast.
Sounds good.
May be my last. Now we're fighting for our lives just to get our balance back. How we see the world shakes under attack. The sky is giving and it's weighing down the skin and legs. We're slowly getting close to the edge. It's all been shattered.
So now, right, here's the big chorus. This is what I would actually go up to the instrument, and I would do an automation bump on this, and I'd want this to hit harder. So that when this comes in, it's going to be like, you've been waiting for this now for 47 bars. Like, you want it to hit harder. So there's two ways you can do it. You can either turn this whole thing up, or you can drop down the volume before it, which is probably a safer bet. It's just whatever you want to do. Some people like to do these crazy long volume rides where it starts really quiet and just keeps continuously going up and then it pops here. But whatever you want to do. But listen, this is going to have way more impact now than it did before.
And it's weighing down the skin and legs, we're slowly getting close to the edge. It's all been shattered.
See, that has the impact that this needs. I actually want to go a little bit more aggressive, I think.
It's all been shattered.
Yeah.
Burnt to pieces. Right from the start, it all falls. But does it matter for us at all?
Man, this is sounding awesome. And personally, what I would do is I would actually do this crazy thing right here where I would start lowering the volume as this is like building, which sounds insane, right? So like we hit this big chorus and then I'd let it go maybe 1 or 2 repeats and then I'd start slowly lowering the volume. Like this is at 0.79 and then it gets to, it'll drop maybe 1.5 dB. And then because this is like a cool part again where it, you know, it's a big impact part, then we bump it right back up to where we were before. But having it slowly decrease over the like these bars, the listener's not going to hear it. They're going to be too busy jamming out with all these cool harmonies that are coming in. And then that gives you the headroom necessary to do another automation and increase the volume again. So then it just keeps like, it feels like the song just keeps like hitting so hard. And it's like, how can it like continuously just blow this up?
When all you need is
Ready? Like watch.
forward slide.
Like that one move just made this whole part like makes you like want to punch something, you know? It's like amazing. Like instant pump up. And you can do the same you can do the same strategy and start like lowering the volume again, but it looks like it gets quiet right here. Okay? So you just let it breathe naturally, and then when it gets this quiet part, that's when you can do your automation back down. Bring it back to like 0, and then, you know, find that last chorus, and that's where you bump it back up. Right? So let's see where it is. Like it's coming, you know it's coming.
It's all been shattered. It's
Right?
torn apart.
And just leave it loud, man. This is the end of the song. Like, why would you turn it down? Like, some fun things to do, turn it up even more at the end. Have it just keep getting louder. Whatever.
When all you need is to forward style.
That's how I do it. That's how, when people, because sometimes people are like, man, how, like, it's so loud. Like, how does it not sound distorted all the time? That's why, because I only make it loud when it needs to be super loud. You can't have loud without soft. So if you listen to like when I mix music, it's like when I want, like when a chorus hits, it's going to hit you like a train because I'm painstakingly going through and making sure that there's quiet before the loud. And that I'm always finding a way so that I can always add a little bit more impact into the mix. So with that, I'm calling it quits, guys. This thing sounds killer. I'm happy with it. Look at this insane volume automation on those vocals, though. It looks like a skyline. But if there's something you got out of this, let me know because I can make a follow-up video and share it with everybody else on YouTube. And with that, I think I'm going to call it quits for the night. Tune in next time. I'd love to see you guys again. All right. Have a wonderful night. I'll see you later. Bye.
The beat and the feet, the feeling. My confidence is straight to the ceiling. So you can say that I'm